Hi, everyone. We're so excited today to have Dr. Bush on the show. Thanks so much for being here, Dr. Bush. This is going to be a great conversation today.
Thanks. Thanks for having me. I'm
Of
excited to
course.
talk.
Yeah.
Yeah, me too. Me too. We've had quite the conversations prior to hopping on this podcast. So we're excited for you to share with our audience. Because really, one of the biggest complaints that we hear from women is that they're gaining weight during menopause and they can't figure out how to take it off. And I know that you have a strong background running your previous clinic with weight loss, I'll call it. I don't like to use the word weight loss, but let's just use that for sake of conversation today, and then recently launched Seattle Menopause Medicine. So let's start by just backing up as we kind of always do on this show. And can you do us a favor and explain to our audience why? Why are women gaining weight during menopause? How does that happen?
Sure. I think first I should clarify that I've never had a weight loss clinic. I am an eating disorder specialist as well as a menopause specialist. And so I have worked with eating disorder populations. And so I have a very strong weight inclusive, health at every size approach to medicine, which is somewhat unique in our field. And when it comes to menopause, so women start to gain weight during the perimenopausal years because of the reduction of estrogen. They have sort of this estrogen androgen challenge, and weight starts to get redistributed from the thighs and hips to the abdomen. And so they start to look rounder, and it becomes very upsetting. They also have a reduction in their basal metabolic rate, which means that they don't burn calories as much as they used to. And so whatever they're doing for their health isn't working, quote unquote. And they start to see an increase of weight. And the average weight gain is about a pound, 1.7 pounds a year, something like that. And it is normal and natural to gain weight as we age, hard stop. And that weight gain is a lot less, though. It's less than like half a pound a year or something like that. And it's sort of unnoticeable for the most part. Um, and so when they start having this increased weight gain that is more central in distribution, then their clothes stop fitting or they just become very hyper aware, and they get upset and they feel like something's wrong with them, that something they're doing wrong, and that um, yeah, and they usually go to their doctor, and their doctor tells them, "Yeah, you're gaining weight. You should lose weight." So I think that's sort of where the perimenopause story is. People tend to notice that they gain about 15 to 20 pounds during perimenopause because the perimenopausal period lasts so long, about 5 to 10 years, depending on when you start and when you finish. And if you're gaining a pound and a half per year, you can kind of just do the math. For some people, it's more, and for some people, it's less.
And
Yeah.
when you see women come into your clinic that are concerned about their weight, and I love the sort of healthy at any size approach that you espouse, because I think it's people are not comfortable when
Mm,
they're heavy and they know it, right? And
totally.
so what what do you say to that? What do you say to them to help them during this time?
I think that I try to explain that it's a natural process that your body's going through and that it will stop too. So, like after perimenopause, the rate of weight gain goes back to normal. And so you don't just keep gaining like weight over, like over the rest of your life. And so I think that's a fear that people have. I talk to them about lifestyle, about what they're doing right now, because also during perimenopause, that time period of our life, like let's pretend it's, I don't know, 40 to 50, we're also at the most stressful points of our life. Usually we're in the top of our career, like we've reached a pinnacle somewhere, like whatever we do for work. We have families that are usually like super busy, like whether it's, no children and in your partner that keeps you really busy, or it could be that you have children who are probably teenagers now and you're driving all around for them. Um, because you're in, I have to shut my door, because you're in um, this state, I think that things like sleep go down and stress goes up and taking care of yourself goes down. And, you might not be getting out even to walk as often as you would like. And maybe you're eating foods for comfort versus like what other choices you would have made younger. So that's what I talk about.
Yeah.
It's like self-care, I think 101. Women don't take really good care of themselves. We're like caretakers of everybody else. And so I guess I start with sleep. And I ask them about how they're sleeping, and we talk about that. I talk about uh, nutrition, not dieting. I talk about the harm of dieting and weight cycling, and that the impulse is to restrict your calories. However, like when you do that, your body starts to defend its weight. And so then you're just sort of getting onto this treadmill, which isn't a healthy one. And so I talk about just making better choices around adding good foods rather than trying to restrict the bad foods, if that
Yeah.
makes sense.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then I talk about movement because I think that everybody, nobody, some people like exercising, but nobody really likes exercising, right? So we talk about finding something that is tolerable. And there's been studies that have shown that any increase in movement helps. So like that might be just, I don't know, like it could be anything. It could be taking a walk, or it could just be, getting up in your house, and maybe you have a sedentary job where you're online all day, and like getting a standing desk and just standing for an hour. Anything. Preferably, I try to get people outside.
Love that. When we were preparing for this podcast, I was thinking about body image, and women's challenge with their body image, me included. Like, why am I still worried about this after 55 years, right? Um, how do you approach that when we're at this phase in our life, and like, we shouldn't be worried about anything like that anymore, and it still hangs in there and it still holds people back. I'm not going to go to that thing because I'm not going to put a dress on for that, or I don't want to be in a picture, or I'm going to stand in the back, or whatever it is. But I think body image carries women from very early age, obviously, to into the menopause phase, where you have, as you say, you're going to gain a few pounds here and there because of what your body's doing. But how do you get past that? What's going on in your head on this?
I mean, it's definitely not a one visit solution. I
Yeah.
think that it's something that people need there. If they're really seriously down on themselves, I think that, I would recommend they get a therapist who can help them with that, honestly, because it's deeper, right? Like there's
Right.
deeper issues. And I think I just start the conversation about it. I acknowledge it. Like we are told what we're supposed to look like. Sometimes I joke with people. We were talking earlier about my sense of humor. I have a really strong sense of humor. And so sometimes I talk about how much more time we would have if we didn't have to put on makeup every day, right? Like, and I'm not down on people putting makeup on at all, but I just want to acknowledge, like, we spend how much time getting ready in the morning when my husband like gets up, showers, does his hair, and walks out, right? Like, and I think, and so sometimes I kind of joke with them about a little bit about, I don't want to say patriarchy because that's kind of overused, but it's true, right? Like how
Yeah.
we are kept in our place, and how, like, as we age, we're sort of in this unique position to not care anymore.
Right.
And, we're not 20 anymore. And I'm not really worried personally. I'm not really worried about somebody noticing me. I'm not really worried about someone thinking I'm good looking, right? Like I'm not worried about that anymore in a way that I was maybe when I was 20. And so I'm like, I feel in some ways we can have like a liberation from that. We
Yeah.
can still want to look good, and you can still want to feel good. And if that has to do with makeup or your hair or whatever. And I talk about vanity, in a good way. Like I say, like we have our vanities and that's great, but we shouldn't harm our body over it.
Yeah.
Right. And we should have like an acceptance. So I talk about height. So I'm very tall.
Okay.
And I say, well, I could be down on myself and I could be really embarrassed about that. And I could think I should be shorter, but I wouldn't cut my legs off.
Yeah.
Right. And so I could be, annoyed with my abdomen and like annoyed that like these pants don't fit anymore. So maybe I should buy pants that do fit me, and rather than try to squeeze my body, into Spanx or something and then into these clothing. and anyway, that's kind of where I go. I
I
mean, I
love
talk
that.
about um, the clothes fitting our body versus our body fitting the clothing. And there's
Mhm.
actually like people out there who can do this for you. Like there's women, there's it's kind of cool. There's women who have made a job or a career out of like finding clothing for your body and then
Mm.
designing a body program for you. Like, I mean, a clothing program for you where you can go online and shop and know that those are going to fit your body. So I think that's what I talk about. And it's not, um, I think it's really about validation. Like, yes, and
Right.
Yeah. I love that. And I I love the piece of feeling healthy, right?
right.
So it's not so much about looking at my body and being disappointed in myself because I'm aging and part of this process is just going to happen and it's going to happen, right? And it is liberating, but it's also feeling healthy. What is going to make you feel good, right? Because
And I
that's
think,
really what
yeah,
matters.
and I think it's proving to people like I spend a lot of time and a lot of energy talking about health markers, like real health markers. It's not this, it's not your, I don't even weigh people. I don't own a scale in my
Mhm.
house, right? And I don't own a scale in my medical practice because menopause is never a reason to weigh somebody,
Mhm.
right? Like maybe cardio, like maybe if someone had congestive heart failure and I was worried about fluid overload, like I would weigh someone to see how much fluid they had gained. But there's
Right.
like never really a reason to get on the scale at the doctor. And so I don't even think about it.
Mhm.
But my point is that but I do think about cholesterol. I mean, I do think about their blood pressure.
Yeah.
Like I do think about preventative measures like mammograms and colonoscopy and vaccines. Like I think about the things that you can really do for your health. I think about having, lean protein in your diet and fruits and vegetables and a well-rounded existence, right? But I don't think about trying to shed 20 pounds, and and that's just because there's just so many other things. Oh, like sleep, like I said, like there's just so many other things, and sometimes when you have when you're working on all of these other things, then sometimes you have weight changes that might affect your body in both positive and negative ways. But I think the most important thing is that your health is there and that
Mhm.
you live a long time.
Right.
And
And then
they've shown that weight is not even though the popular press wants to tell you that your weight is what's correlated to like if you're higher weight you live less shorter. It's not true. It's like what's true is that if you the one thing they know that is true is that if you move your body, um, if you do any kind of exercise at all, you will increase your longevity.
Mhm. Mhm.
Like, and so that if there's anything somebody wanted to do rather than diet, I would say move, do
Move.
yoga, do something with a group, do whatever you want. Like it's hard for me to think of what other people, now it's what's the rage, the not tennis, but the other one.
Oh, the
Pickleball.
pickleball. Yeah.
Pickleball, right? Like, pickleball, like, do something, right? And they just show time and time again that that is the one consistent marker. And
Mm.
so I think, why are we focusing on changing our body size when we should be focusing on getting out of the house and doing something, right?
Yeah.
Like moving our bodies.
Well, and that's good for other things too, right? I
Right.
mean, it's not just our weight to get out, move, be with people, do things that you love. And there are other benefits to that
Yeah, right.
as well. And community, we talk about that a lot on this podcast. Community is really important for those of us that are moving through menopause as well, because it can be isolating, it can be lonely. And
Yeah.
I expect that all of that is intertwined with our emotional health, our physical health, right? Psychological, everything. So,
It'd be a
yeah,
fun study to do like
pickleball.
exercise on your own or exercise in a group and see how people's mood changes. Like to see like if you could prove like is there a nuance to that? Like does it matter if you move on, because
Yeah.
there was just a study just I think last year there was a study on depression and it showed that any amount of increased movement helps. So it's not like vigorous exercise. If people think, oh, I can't do this because
Hmm.
I cannot run for 30 minutes 5 days a week. That's what my
Right.
doctor told me to do. Vigorous exercise, 30 minutes, 5 days a week. And I'm like, no, any amount of exercise.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And oh, and then I guess in menopause specifically, like you don't want to discount the fact that the other change that we experience is a loss of muscle. So when estrogen goes down, and also I think it's like timing wise in terms of aging, we experience like a loss of lean muscle, and so lean body mass, I mean. And so it's good to do things that build muscle and
Yeah.
to try to do either, you could do weightlifting, but you could also do things like Pilates or yoga where you're like lifting your own body weight, right? Just trying to encourage your muscle, right?
Right.
Um, so I do think that that's also important to think
You mentioned that you don't have a scale in your practice, which is amazing because that and blood pressure are the two things that I worry the most about when I walk into the
about.
doctors. What are they going to say about it? But you also discussed before we came on air about how people have seen lots of doctors and then they finally find the you because you have more time. But how does someone advocate for themselves? Like, say you walk into a doctor's office and there's a scale there and you're like, I don't need that information and this is what I want. How would you advise women who are, really haven't been heard by any doctor and they need some help? What would you tell them? How should they approach it?
I think so. There actually are some companies out there that produce these little cards that you can actually hand to people if you don't want to talk about it, that say, please don't weigh me. If my doctor needs to weigh me, please explain why so that I
Mm.
can give my informed consent to be weighed.
Yeah.
Um, that's one way. The other way is I just tell people to say, if they say, please get on the scale, you can say, no, I'm good. I say it, my doctor's
Imagine
office.
though saying that. I mean,
I
really,
did, and it made
let's
me really hot. It gave me a hot flash. Like I went to the
yeah. I
doctor's
mean, I
office.
wanted to come
Yeah,
back to that though, because I think that we can say that, but that can be really hard for
yeah. No,
anyone because
and
we
then
don't we don't we don't give ourselves permission to say no, especially to anyone that is a medical professional, right? We just
Authority,
okay,
right?
okay,
yeah.
okay,
No, and,
right?
and, it's, and
So
it's so true. And I think, I mean, like I'm a doctor, and when I went for my last physical, I was like, I'm going to practice what I preach, right? Because
yeah.
I don't care one way or the other about a scale, but I was like, I'm just going to say no. And so I got there, and I was like sweating before I even got in the room, right? Because I was like, oh God, I'm gonna have to have this confrontation with a medical assistant who is, not my doctor actually, but and I'm like, she's like, okay, go ahead and get on the scale. And I was like, no, thank you. And
Yeah,
she's like, okay. And then we just moved on. And
love
so I think
that
that we have it built up in our mind that it's going to be this conflict, but I think that there's
confrontation.
actually
Mhm.
enough awareness now in like there's sort of become this awareness of this movement of why are you weighing me, what does my weight have to do with my sinus infection, like why, if I just want hormone therapy, why are you trying to weigh me, right? Like it doesn't matter what my weight is today, you're going to treat me the same, right? Or hopefully. And so I think there's a little bit of awareness so that if you do say that, and then I personally think that um, it's really on the doctor, it's really on these offices to change, but of course that's going to take
Long time.
to ask permission,
Yeah.
when you mind getting on the scale. And then you can say, well, actually, I don't really feel like being weighed today.
Mm.
And I got to say, like, I've done a lot of work on myself on this. Like, it's not like I was born weight neutral. I'm a doctor. I was born into medicine, which is not weight neutral. And I had to do a lot of work on that because I remember when people didn't get on the scale and I was annoyed. And then I realized, like, well, I'm not going to use that number for anything today. So,
Mhm.
like, why are we fighting with this patient? And so that it was just, that was probably the beginning, maybe like 18 years ago. Like,
Yeah.
why do I
Ahead of your
care?
time.
Yeah.
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 So I don't have a good answer for you because it is really confrontational in the weirdest way. But there are like I said, if you look online, there are these or little cards that people can have that say, "Please don't weigh me," or "Please tell me why you need my weight," or and we give that resource out to people in my other practice with eating disorders, to so that they can sort of try to advocate for themselves. And yeah.
I love it. And I really appreciate the perspective on that, because I think we just say yes and we don't even think. And if it were me, I know that I would need to practice what I was going to say
Yeah.
before I got there. Like, okay, they're going to ask me this, no, thank you. I
Right.
like your, no, I'm good.
I know.
Yeah.
Thanks.
And the
Well,
thing is that,
thanks.
I mean, the thing is, it's like, I feel like if people who are, what I really want, what I really think there should be a movement for is like for thin women to do that. Because if thin women started refusing to get on the scale, then it would make it easier for our larger friends to not get on the scale.
Yeah.
Right. And like, as long as we're like, as long as thin women continue to get on the scale, then like, it's always going to be like, oh, well, that person's larger. And so that's why they don't want to get on the scale. And
Right.
actually, the answer is it doesn't have to do with that. It has
Yeah.
to do with what your weight is does not affect your ear infection. Like
Mhm.
what your weight is, it actually doesn't affect how I'm going to manage your blood pressure.
Mm.
Right. Because if your blood pressure is high, I'm not going to tell you to lose weight. Because you've already, if you, it's just a dumb thing to do, right? Because people have already tried that probably,
Right.
right? And
Close my
instead,
eyes when I'm on the scale, by the way. I
yeah,
just close my eyes. Like I
you
don't
don't look.
just don't even want to know. What am I going to do
Yeah.
with that
And
information?
then,
It's probably going to make me feel bad. So I'm
and so
not going
yeah, and so my
to.
practice, I don't need that because I think, um, and I did have somebody recently who came in who hadn't been to a doctor for a long time, um, and she was concerned about her weight, and it was so interesting because I was like, but you're so healthy.
Yeah.
We just focused on that, like all the reasons why that you're healthy. And
Yeah.
then I hope that when they left, um, they felt like better, like, oh, I am healthy and I
Yeah.
live in a larger body.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And right.
And
And
Like, and it's hard to be, and it's it's hard because of society.
mhm.
And there's a lot of people out there who are super focused on it.
Yeah.
Um,
unfortunately.
And I love what you said too in the beginning of our conversation when we were talking about nutrition and the really spinning it in that we're not going to restrict certain foods. We're going to add in healthy foods. And I know Kim and I both are health coaches, and that's something that we focus on as well. Instead of choosing something that you can work on this week and restricting yourself and taking something away if it's weight loss that you're interested in, um, let's talk about what you can add in, right?
right.
Yeah.
What
Way
can
more
I
we
mean,
fun.
a little bit, right?
Yep.
yeah,
It's
like I think that
yeah,
people should, they don't know how to cook, they should learn how to cook because like maybe eating home, like learning how to cook and cooking for yourself, like those kind of things, they could be more pleasurable. But definitely like I think that's a big part of Health at Every Size is a movement and it has a book and it's trademarked and the whole thing. Lindo Bacon, we'll give her credit, we'll give them credit. Um, that's part of that reasoning is that we should add in the things that we know are good for us,
Yeah.
yeah,
right?
I love that.
And then whether or not we eat the other things, that's okay. We've got in the things that we need. And I think truthfully what happens is, you feel pretty satiated and you're like, I'm gonna have dessert, but I also just had this great meal, right?
Yeah.
So
yeah,
In my health coaching, I usually call it crowd out. Crowd out the other things that you probably shouldn't be eating with the things that are really good for you, so that you do feel
satisfied.
satiated.
Yeah,
You feel good and your body's well taken care of. And that doesn't mean that you don't get to have dessert, but it does mean that you're taking care of yourself.
yeah,
yeah,
and I think
Well,
it's a positive spin.
yeah,
absolutely.
yeah.
Yeah. Well, loved having you on the podcast today. We've been looking forward to this conversation because of all the stuff that comes with weight for women and then women in menopause. So really appreciate your perspective. Is there anything else that you'd want to leave our audience with that we didn't talk about today?
Not that we didn't talk about, but I think I would just put a big plug on out there for trying to end, weight cycling and dieting. that there's more harm than good that comes from trying to, diet, restrict your weight. Then, you bounce back after that, that the markers of health go down each time you do that, that your cortisol goes up and that your metabolic rates go down. And so I think that overall, we would be better off if we could live with ourselves, and treat ourselves right and take care of our bodies and not be so disparaging, that I think there'd just be like so many positive effects that would come with that. So I guess that's my final word, is that I don't believe in diets. I do believe in changing your lifestyle, and that whether or not you lose weight, it doesn't matter. It has to do with feeling better.
Right.
I
And
love
being
that.
able to do all the things that you want to do. Right.
100%.
Yeah.
Yeah. Health span. Health
Yeah.
span. Health
Exactly.
span, right, versus lifespan. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, Dr. Bush, we end all of our episodes with a rapid fire. So we're going to have a little bit of fun and get to know you a little bit better here before we end. So I'll just jump right in with the first rapid fire. Would you prefer a quiet evening to yourself or a big party with all of your friends?
Quiet evening.
Right
She's
there
so
with
quick on that. She like knew right away, right?
100%.
How about the mountains or the ocean?
Ocean.
Ah, three ocean ladies right here.
Mhm.
Right here. Yeah.
Fiction or nonfiction?
Oh, fiction.
For sure.
And
Yeah.
the best, we ask this to all of our guests, what's the best piece of advice you've ever received?
So hard. I don't know. I'm like, that one kind of stumps me. I've had so many good, I guess what I would say, sadly, and maybe not to my benefit, is my dad saying, fake it till you make it.
Yes, yes.
That's
That
great advice.
come up a little bit in a little different twist, but yeah.
Yeah, right. Like
Yeah.
I've had so many mentors over the years. It's pretty amazing.
No,
Yeah.
you're lucky.
Good. It's good. It's good you had mentors, and we can all be mentors to
Yeah.
other people. And I
Yeah.
feel like even being in midlife here where we are for the younger generation, let's change things, right? We are actually recording this on International Women's Day. And
Yes.
so let's change history, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Actually, if I could
change.
revise my answer, it would be the best advice I ever got was from a yoga instructor, and it was moment to moment.
Moment to
That's
moment.
Yep.
moment to moment. So like I feel like that's what it is on Women's Day and being a woman, and it's like this moment to the next. We just got to keep working at it.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yep.
Moment to
Moment
moment.
to moment. Hmm.
Love
And
it.
take in every single moment,
Oh,
right?
Yeah.
Life is
yeah.
short, ladies. And I'm so glad that both of you are in my life. So thank you so much, Dr. Bush, for being here.
You having me?
That is a wrap. So until we meet again,
Okay.
joy in the journey.
All
Thanks,
right.
everybody.
Take it
See you
easy.
soon. Bye-bye.
Bye.